my lifestyle could look very different right now. I could easily be behind a desk, crunching numbers, which would probably be not as fun as hitting a wiffle ball on a small pickleball pickleball court. Well, so there was a lot of talk about it being in the 2028 Olympics, since that's going to be hosted in LA, I think. And so they were saying that the host country has some more influence over what sports make it in. And so there was a lot of hope, I think, that pickleball would make it into the 2028 Olympics in LA. But
what's up, guys? Ben here. New episode of 00 Start Podcast brought to you by JustPaddles. Today we have one of the best players in the world. Really excited. Can't wait to have you on here. I can't wait to hear about all the things pickleball from your world, Dylan. Dylan Frazier, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
So I always do a little bit of research. I mean, obviously we watch you play all across the world, and you since you win so much, you're obviously playing a lot of matches, so we have a lot of opportunities to watch you play. But I want to hear, from you, your start into pickleball. Wow, how did you get your start? Because your start was a little bit more unique than most of the pros start into the game.
Yeah, it was definitely a little different in the sense that I didn't come from a competitive racket sport background. I played some basketball and football and baseball up through my first couple of years of high school. And my mom actually introduced me and my dad to the sport while we were visiting family in Florida. We were visiting my grandparents there, and we played at a recreation center there one afternoon when we needed some time to kill. And much like a lot of other people that play pickleball for the first time, we all kind of caught the bug right away and went and played the next couple of days at that center too. We all really loved it. And then when we got back to Missouri, we found a spot to play here called the Show Me Pickleball Club. It was a Facebook group, and they were kind of a smaller group that had just gotten started. And they had some organized times to play in Missouri. And so we joined that group and started going and playing tournaments from there.
And never looked back?
Never looked back. Yep.
So tell me, that's crazy to me, because I can't imagine. I'm sure it happens, right? Players in the NFL, I didn't play football until senior year of high school. That probably happens, but you don't hear about it often. How do you think there was a benefit, or do you think that you were fighting an uphill battle, or what do you think, coming from a different sport? I think every sport helps pickleball in some way.
Yeah.
But do you think that you were fighting an uphill battle not coming from a racket sport?
I would say that it would probably take me a little bit more time, not coming from a racket sport, to get to a high level of pickleball. That being said, there were some habits that tennis players have with them that they have to break when they come into the sport that I didn't have to. There are also some habits I did have to develop that were just lacking completely. And so I would say that baseball was the biggest help in terms of the hand-eye coordination was super helpful. Playing at the kitchen line and doing the hands and everything was always kind of came naturally to me. And the further I get away from the kitchen line, when I have to do more baseline style play, that's when it gets a little more unnatural for me. And that's where I had to start developing some pickleball habits. And yeah, the baseball with the footwork too is also super helpful. And especially when you're fielding a ground ball and kind of getting around the ball and making sure you're in the right spot to field it. The footwork's super important in pickleball, and make sure you're in the right spot, giving yourself enough space before every hit.
Yeah, that's the thing that I immediately thought of is I played racquetball, and it's immediately you're like, God, dude, this is so different. You can't do that, and you can't do this, and they're hitting the ball right at me, right, and not to the wall and back to me. And I'm like, this is so hard to, and where you think you have an advantage in I played something with a racket in my hand and a ball, you're breaking decades of habits, not for you because you're a lot younger than me, but decades of habits that you did forever, and now they don't work in this sport. So you had a blank canvas, and yeah, I think it's amazing that you were able to get so good so quickly, not having played a racket sport. But in a sense, that blank canvas, I think is a benefit.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely helps in a lot of ways. There's habits that you don't have to break, and pretty much everything that you're kind of starting from scratch, like you said. And so everything that you do is kind of specific to pickleball. And so you're going to do the most, optimal swing or whatever, or stroke on every single shot. So it is helpful in a lot of ways.
So you give us all hope for people that didn't play, because I think that's a lot of the hesitation to get into pickleball. It's like, oh, I don't play tennis. It's like, you don't have to play tennis, especially to play like at a recreational level. You don't have to have played a racket sport. That feels like a one of the biggest entries to, like, the barrier to entry is like, oh, I didn't play a racket. It's like, you don't have to. You can get in and play this game at a fun level and rally without having played a racket sport. And you obviously are like the 1%, probably less than that actually, that can take it to the highest level, having not played a racket sport. But you give everybody hope that hasn't played a racket sport to like get into the game, and you can be successful in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it does help that, when did you start pickleball? In 2016, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
So you're 22 now. So you started at the age of 14.
Yeah.
Your grandma got you involved in it at a local rec center.
Yeah.
Does your grandma have a percentage of every contract you sign and every paycheck that you get from winning these tournaments? She has to have something invested in this.
She didn't think, and it was both my grandparents, my grandpa and grandma, but they didn't think to negotiate that into my playing contract when we just started at the rec center there.
Yeah.
Especially at the time when there wasn't a lot of money in the sport. It's kind of crazy to look back even just 8 years ago and see the difference between, prize payouts and how professional tournaments are run, and versus back then when you were just kind of playing for t-shirts and medals. The difference is crazy. We've come a long way.
It's pretty crazy. And I don't even think we've scraped the surface of what's to come. And I'm not involved in all these big meetings behind the scenes, but I do hear about them sometimes. And it sounds like things are just ready to explode in really big ways. And you see obviously you're on MLP, and you see all the names that are involved, and there has to be a massive back end plan for these people to get involved. They're just going to buy a team and then, have it flounder. Like, there are some plans to make this thing huge. So you're lucky. You're in it. You're 22 years old. You're in it early, and you have a long career ahead of you.
Yeah, I hope so. You never know how long the window is, or anything can happen, and the talent pool is getting tougher and tougher. But I'd like to think that I've got at least a few years left, and hopefully more. I plan to be involved with pickleball probably for a while after my playing career is over in some form or fashion. I'm trying to brainstorm ways to do that. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see where the sport goes.
That's a cool thing, though. Like, I think one of the coolest things is, like, obviously you don't have kids, but like when you do, you coach. He plays this sport and he plays that sport, and for the most part, at least where we're at, is like, oh, that guy played in college. He played college football, or these coaches played, in the minor leagues of baseball, or this guy was in the major leagues, whatever. Pickleball seems like a player that's played at the highest level like that, and the game so intricately, you have a career after you play, coaching, lessons, camps, and even further beyond that too. Like, it seems like the opportunities don't end right when your playing career is over.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of different ways to get involved in the sport, like you said, coaching, camps. There's businesses springing up left and right, and especially now that it's growing internationally, it's going to even open up a lot more doors. And yeah, lots of ways to get involved with pickleball outside of just playing.
So walk me through a day then. So this is what you do full time. Walk me through a day in Dylan Frazier's life, from what time you wake up to how do you train? Do you train in the morning? Are you a big napper? Are you a gamer? Like, what do we do? Because I know that you have some free time, right? During the day, you train for a few hours. You might train later in the afternoon again, but you got a chunk of the day where you got some time. What are we doing?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely big on sleep. I'm never at a lack of sleep. So I usually, and it just kind of depends on the day. Like, I don't have like a specific routine that I follow on a daily basis, but just depends on what I'm feeling that day. Really, I just kind of wing it. But it usually involves waking up late morning, sleeping in usually when there's not a tournament or anything going on, and then probably going to do a workout session, and then either drilling or playing later in the afternoon. And then that evening, doing something fun like hanging out with friends, depending on which area I'm in. I split time between Missouri and Florida now, so I actually go to school part time online at the University of Missouri. Um, and then I also have a place now in Florida where I'm staying, and so I'm able to train with the SoFlo crew there. Lots of talented players there. So usually in the evening I'll go and hang out with some of those guys, or if I'm in Missouri with my roommates and some of my other friends here.
That's awesome. So you're currently enrolled in the University of Missouri.
Yes.
Are you going to hang on as long as you can for when D1 pickleball comes around so you can play? Although, oh no, with the NIL, it doesn't matter. You can play the pro tour and it won't matter anymore. Would that be something that you'd be open to if like, because that's coming, right? Like, I feel like all the schools are one day, like tennis, like pretty much every college has a tennis team.
Yeah.
In the near future, every college is going to have a pickleball team. Is that something that you would do? Would you play on the college pickleball team?
I would definitely do it if it happened before I graduate. I don't have much time left. I'm definitely dragging it out and taking my time to get through this college process. I'm taking one online class per semester right now, and I've got 4 or 5 classes left to go before I graduate. And so that'll be 4 or 5 semesters at this pace. But if it happens, if it comes in before I graduate, I'll definitely look into it and give it a try. Yeah, that would be cool.
But there's an MBA you can get. That'll drag it out by another 2 years. You can get your doctor. I mean, you can. Have you ever seen the movie Van Wilder? Probably not. You're probably too young for that. But you can spread this thing out and be in college forever.
Yeah, I could. Although I will say that once I finish that last class, I'm probably going to be out of there pretty quickly. At least right now. I may go back. I can always go back. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the same way, and it's I'm just kidding, obviously, but I do see that being as like a really cool part of like pickleball. Like that's going to be such a cool part. Having it involved in college, not only like will the NCAA part of it be super cool to like see what the dominant teams are, but then I see the population of the sport exploding when all the campuses in the country have pickleball courts because to me it's like it's the and I don't mean this to like insult, but it is like the perfect college game. Like it is the perfect game for everyone in college to be playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And they've got a couple courts here on campus at Mizzou, indoor on their basketball courts. So not the most like ideal court situation if you're like an avid pickleball player, but at least something in place so that some students are exposed to it and can mess around on the pickleball court and at least have an idea of what it is. They've also got some public courts, probably 10 to 15 minutes away at a public park there. And usually the evenings are pretty full of like young college aged kids going out there and having fun. They bring drinks out there, whatever. And we're seeing a lot more of that as of recently.
What kind of drinks, Dylan? What are you talking about?
Yeah, you know,
And those college kids are there for studying, building their future, and playing, and maybe playing a little bit of pickleball.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're taking their water out there. They're making sure they stay hydrated. Don't want any injuries out there.
That's what I thought you were talking about. Yeah, that's what I thought you meant. I'm glad you clarified that because 48 million people are going to be watching this. They wanted you to clarify that.
Yeah,
Give or take a few people. So, like, with the growth of the sport, though, like, it's exploding. And is it possible to keep growing at this pace? Like, can they build enough courts? Can there be enough programs? Is there enough? Where do you see the sport taking over? I mean, I don't want to offend tennis. Like, I know tennis is an incredible sport worldwide. I mean, it's the leading racket sport in the world. Do you see it surpassing tennis at its peak?
yeah, that would be that's a good question. And pickleball's got a lot of momentum behind it right now, and how long that momentum lasts is kind of to be determined. But now that it's going international, I think it certainly has the potential to be on the same level as tennis. The one thing about pickleball that kind of gives it an edge over tennis is that it's a lot more accessible to all different ages. The pickleball courts itself are a little bit smaller, so they're a little more cost efficient to put into clubs and parks and whatnot. And it's just kind of a lower barrier entry in general, just to get into pickleball and start playing. It's more sociable. So there's a lot of things pickleball has going for it, just about its inherent nature, that kind of helps it, is kind of the reason behind its momentum right now and why it has so much popularity and why people are falling in love with it so quickly. So I definitely see, at least on an amateur level, and like in terms of pickleball being in parks and clubs across the world, I can see it being on the same level as tennis. The professional side of pickleball, I think, is maybe a little bit of a different question, but maybe with the same answer, that it definitely has potential to be on the same level as of tennis if the right players get into it. If we kind of move in the right direction, if you will, which is, I don't know if anybody knows what the right direction is right now, but I think we're headed in the right direction. Like, so far, the past few years, we've seen a lot of growth and on the professional tour and just in terms of like number of courts across the country. So I think it definitely has potential to get there.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. Like you just mentioned, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, we were playing for t-shirts, and like even maybe if you did win, it was, like, oh cool, I can go to dinner or something. And now, like, the contracts are unbelievable, and the prize money has, I don't even know how many times it's doubled, right? But it is blown up. And to the point you were making, like, the courts are smaller, so you don't need as much real estate, but also it's super sociable. The equipment is a lot less expensive too, right? Than like a tennis. Like, I mean, I know you can it's getting up there, and the paddles are now $300. But to be a top player, you could play with us. There's a lot of good product that's a little bit less expensive. The balls aren't expensive. There's no restringing that needs to be, which is probably like the most expensive part of tennis, is restringing rackets. So I could see this thing exploding worldwide soon. And I know it's they're kind of popping up in countries around the world, but when some of these highly populated countries grab wind of like how awesome it is, I think this sport is going to just propel to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, and I hope so. It'd be cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's coming. And I was saying, I made a prediction earlier in the year on one of the podcasts, saying that 2024 was going to be a year, not that it was in the Olympics, but they were going to announce that it will be on the list of sports to be considered for a soon Olympic game. Do you have a prediction on when it's coming?
Yeah.
When do you think the pickleball is going to be in the Olympics?
Well, so there was a lot of talk about it being in the 2028 Olympics, since that's going to be hosted in LA, I think. And so they were saying that the host country has some more influence over what sports make it in. And so there was a lot of hope, I think, that pickleball would make it into the 2028 Olympics in LA. But I think we got beat out by flag football, is what I heard. I think we got beat out by flag football. And so maybe 2032 is the next goal.
That's that's what I think too. I think it's I mean, from a global perspective and everything, it's probably too soon to say 4 years from now we'll be in the Olympics, because some of these countries haven't even started playing yet. But 8 years from now, everybody is going to be playing this game, and I think 2032 Summer Olympics, it's happening. But is Dylan Frazier going to be on the team?
I hope so. I'm gonna do my darndest to make sure that I'm a candidate for being on the team.
You'd be 30 years old. That's young. I know it doesn't sound like it for now, like from your perspective, but it is young.
Yeah. Yeah, and pickleball, especially being one of those sports that you can play kind of a little bit later, since it's not quite as physically demanding as some other sports. I might be in my prime. Yeah.
Yeah, you will be. I mean, you will be. There's plenty of players that are like in their 40s and 50s, and you're looking at them, you're like, golly, like, how do you do that? So 30 is like very young. And don't say otherwise, Dylan. I don't want to hear it if you don't say otherwise.
Uh-huh.
So how long do you think and on that same point, you see this thing lasting for 20, 30 years, like your playing career? Do you have are you just kind of, I know you mentioned your training is, you just kind of wing it. Is that kind of how you're taking your career too? Like one step at a time and see how it kind of plays out?
Yeah, I really try to go one step at a time. It's easy to start kind of speculating on what the next, couple of years or even 5 years is going to look like, but it's very difficult to speculate in pickleball what's going to happen, because it just changes so fast, and there's new players in the game, every year or even less than a year. It's the landscape is constantly changing, and so it's so hard to predict. So my plan, at least as of now, is just trying to go kind of one step at a time, like you said. My plan right now is like try to extend my playing career as long as possible, however long that may be. If it's 5 years, awesome. If it's 15 years, great. Like I don't know how long that window is, but I'm just going to try to enjoy it while I can, because it's been pretty fun.
It's easy to enjoy. And I know you guys have a unique perspective that very, very few people can appreciate. And like when you play a sport professionally, you do lose a little bit of the fun, right? Because like you're competing for not only like that prize money, but you're competing for a bigger sponsorship with Selkirk, or when Nike rolls in, like you obviously, so it does take a little bit of the fun out of it, but just the ride in general seems like a lot of fun. Like the growth, like 5 years ago, if they were like, you're going to be on a professional pickleball team and it's going to be owned by, this celebrity, you'd be like, no, I'm not,
Yeah,
you know? So it has to be just the growth in general has to be fun.
yeah, yeah. We're kind of like the pioneers of the sport, so it is fun to be part of it.
So what part of being a pro pickleball player, like what is the best part of it? Is there a like, oh, I love to travel and see, I get to travel whenever I want, all these different places and get treated like a king, or is it what is it? What's your favorite part of it?
Uh, Honestly, my favorite part is just kind of the freedom and flexibility that kind of comes with playing pickleball. Obviously, you've got certain number of tournaments that you have to play every single year, but as far as like what your day to day looks like, there's a lot of freedom in your schedule to kind of schedule your day as you want it to, as opposed to maybe like a desk job where you're in the office from 9 to 5. There's just a lot of freedom that comes with playing pickleball, and so I'm super grateful for that. I know what I started my uh, degree in accountancy when I first started at Mizzou, and so it could my lifestyle could look very different right now. I could be easily be behind a desk, crunching numbers, which would probably be not as fun as hitting a wiffle ball on a small pickleball court. And so yeah, no, I'm just super thankful for the opportunity to be playing pickleball at the pro level, and all of the benefits it has to offer in terms of freedom and flexibility. It's also just uh, like we talked about, it's super sociable. So you kind of meet like a whole new group of friends in the sport, and you meet a ton of people that you wouldn't meet if you hadn't started playing the sport. And celebrity team owners is really cool. There's just a lot of windows that pickleball has opened. I've a lot of new friends that I've made, and a lot of freedom that comes along with it. So that's probably my favorite part.
That's awesome. That'll just continue to just. I think you will have the opportunity to meet so many people over the span of your career, and like you mentioned, it's just like so fresh and cool, and like just the excitement of it in general and the passion of it just makes every time you get on the court fun. Like I mean, in practice, and you know what I mean. Like it's you go to the courts and like you see 80-year-olds or 5-year-old playing with their dad or mom. It's like everybody's loving it. It's just an easy sport to like want to go out there and be a part of.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's on the agenda? Not today, but what are we? What are you looking forward to? What's next?
Yeah. So the next event is actually the Major League Pickleball Kansas City tournament. So that's kind of like I treat that kind of as like my hometown tournament, even though it's a couple hours from where I live here in Columbia. And then that's followed by the PPA Kansas City tournament. So we're going to kind of be uh, a little stretch of tournaments here in Kansas City that I'm excited to play in, because I'll have a lot of friends and family and support at both of those events, and it's always really fun having them there. It was the same last year when we had this event in Kansas City. There was a lot of people that I've met on my kind of my journey to being where I am now that have been super beneficial in helping me get to this point. A lot of people that I met that kind of helped me get to where I am. So really, it's going to be really fun to have all of those people kind of in one spot cheering me on. a little extra motivation to perform better at these events probably. Until then, I just plan on staying home for a few days and kind of enjoying the time off. That's one thing that I do try to be intentional about, just taking time off, because it's a lot of traveling and on the go and tournaments back to back weekends or back to back weekends, and a lot of training. So intentional time off is definitely part of my strategy to kind of maintaining a high level of play, especially when you start thinking about your mental health. Super important to me to take time off, and so that's what I'll be doing up until these tournaments.
Awesome. Well, you got a couple tournament stretch of playing in your home state with your family there. Like, there's nothing better to look forward to than that. And JustPaddles is in Missouri. I'm not sure you knew this, Kansas City. So we will be at all those tournaments too. And we might be rooting for people that live in Missouri more than others.
Let's go. Nice.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world. We'll obviously be watching. We'll be rooting for you. And if there's anything you need from us, always let us know. But good luck in your next tournaments, and we'll be watching.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll see you there.